Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The roots of this case are connected to the city of Mumbai, known as the financial capital of the Indian state of Maharashtra, a region celebrated for its rich culture. In Mumbai, there is a suburb called Santa Cruz, where an apartment building named Ganesh Krupa Cooperative Housing Society is located. The Shah family lived in one of the apartments of this building named Ganesh Krupa. The family consisted of the head of the household, Kamal Kant Shah, his wife, Kajal aka Kavita Shah, and their two children. Among the two children were a 20-year-old daughter and a 17-year-old son. Along with the four of them, Kamal Kant Shah's mother, Sarla Devi, also lived in the same house. Kamal Kant Shah owned his own clothing company and his business was doing quite well. Everything at home was also going smoothly, and Kamal Kant's three sisters were happy and content in their own lives. But soon the happiness of this family was about to be overshadowed as Kamal Kant's 65-year-old mother, Sarla Devi, began experiencing severe vomiting and extreme stomach pain on July 29, 2022. The pain became so intense that she had to be admitted to the hospital immediately. The doctors at the hospital tried hard to figure out what was causing Sarla Devi's condition, but they couldn't understand anything. During this time, the doctors also conducted numerous blood tests, but none of them proved helpful. Soon, Sarla Devi's condition started worsening even more, and after battling the pain for 15 straight days, she finally took her last breath on August 13, 2022. Within a few days, the cheerful Shah family had completely shattered, and now everyone was waiting for Sarla Devi's death report. The doctors explained in her death report that the cause of death was multi-organ failure due to severe influenza A, pneumonia, left ventricular dysfunction, and hypothyroidism. But even after this, no one suspected that Sarla Devi might have been murdered as part of a calculated conspiracy. Though in fact everyone believed that Sarla Devi had grown old and that due to weakness she had naturally passed away from multi-organ failure. However, the entire Shah family was in deep shock from this death, and Kamal Kant Shah, holding back his emotions, lit his mother's funeral pyre and performed her last rites. Still, it took a few days for the family to return to their normal lives and daily routine. But just 10 days after Sarla Devi's death, on August 24, 2022, her son Kamal Kant Shah also began experiencing intense stomach pain and repeated vomiting. Initially, Kamal Kant thought it was because he had eaten out the previous night, and perhaps the food hadn't digested properly, which was causing the pain and vomiting. At first, Kamal Kant tried to treat himself using some home remedies, but gradually the stomach pain kept getting worse. Eventually, Kamal Kant went to his local doctor, who conducted a basic checkup and gave him some medicines, saying he would be fine after taking them. However, even after taking the medicines for 2 to 3 days, Kamal Kant's condition didn't improve. In fact, along with the stomach pain, his whole body also started aching. Additionally, he began losing a lot of hair, and those of you who have watched our Sharma family video might already be noticing a familiar pattern. Kamal Kant's condition first worsened on August 24th, but by August 27th, seeing his deteriorating health, the local doctor advised him to go to a good hospital for a full-body checkup, as these symptoms pointed toward a serious illness. On August 27th, Kamal Kant went to Kriti Care Hospital in the Andheri suburb, 3 miles from his home, and explained his issues to the doctors there. After this, Kamal Kant Shah was admitted to the hospital. Meanwhile, his sisters and wife were extremely worried. After all, it had only been a short time since their mother, Sarla Devi, had passed away, and now suddenly, Kamal Kant had also fallen seriously ill. Kamal Kant's treatment began at Kriti Care Hospital, and his entire body was thoroughly examined, but nothing came up in his medical reports, and once again the doctors failed to identify the root cause of his illness. Meanwhile, Kamal Khan's condition continued to worsen day by day while he lay on a bed at Kriti Care Hospital. As a result, the doctors there referred him to Bombay Hospital, one of the most renowned hospitals in Mumbai. His treatment began there as well. Blood tests were conducted, but even then, the reports didn't show anything abnormal. The doctors at Bombay Hospital were also unable to understand the reason behind Kamal Khan's condition, and this was no ordinary hospital. It was one of the top 10 hospitals in Mumbai. Kamal Khan's condition kept deteriorating with each passing day, and every moment of his life was passing in unbearable pain. Still, the doctors at Bombay Hospital began his treatment based purely on guesswork. Fortunately, after a few days, Kamal Khan's condition started to improve gradually, and to everyone's surprise, after just a few days of treatment, he was discharged from the hospital with the assurance that he had recovered and could now go home. But this relief lasted only 2 days, as Kamal Khan fell ill again, and this time his stomach pain was even worse than before. So, once again, the family rushed Kamal Khan back to Bombay Hospital. After being admitted again, as soon as the doctors resumed his treatment and gave him some medication, he started feeling better once more. In other words, he remained stable while he was in the hospital, but his condition would worsen as soon as he returned home. However, this time the doctors noticed something unusual. Since the time Kamal Khan had been admitted, his hair and beard had stopped growing. Kamal Khan's family members had also noticed this, and as a result, the doctors at Bombay Hospital, becoming suspicious, recommended a heavy metal test for him. The test was conducted, and now all that remained was to wait for the report. By September 13th, the heavy metal test report had arrived, and when the doctors read it, they were stunned. It turned out that 2 chemical elements, arsenic and thallium, were found in Kamal Khan's body. Thallium is an extremely toxic metal that was once used in rat poison many years ago. Arsenic, too, is a deadly natural poison. Just a small amount of thallium entering the stomach can cause hair loss, numbness in body parts, and severe abdominal pain. On the other hand, ingesting arsenic can lead to intense vomiting. Both of these chemical elements are colorless, odorless, and tasteless, which makes them very hard to detect. Because of this, the sale of these toxic chemical elements is now banned, as many people started using them to poison their enemies. Although both of these chemical elements are present in the human body in trace amounts, in Kamal Khan's case, the arsenic level was 425.76 units, whereas the normal range in the human body is between 0.4 and 1.19 units. Similarly, the thallium level was 362.34 units, while it should normally be between 0.15 and 0.63 units. This meant that both metals were present in Kamal Khan's body in quantities several hundred times higher than normal. That's why the doctors at Bombay Hospital immediately informed the police, as they suspected foul play. Officers from Azad Maidan police station arrived at the hospital, and the doctors explained the entire situation to them, that a patient named Kamal Khan had been found with dangerously high levels of arsenic and thallium in his body. But the concerning thing was that the amount of these 2 chemical elements found in Kamal Khan's body was so high that the human body cannot produce that much on its own. This confirmed that someone was deliberately giving these substances to Kamal Khan. After hearing this, the police realized that both of these elements are dangerous for humans and act like slow poison. But before the police could even begin their investigation, Kamal Khan, lying on his hospital bed, took his last breath on September 19th, 2022 at 10:40 p.m. After that, the doctors informed both Kamal Khan's family and the police. Upon hearing this, his entire family was shocked because after his father's death, Kamal Khan had been managing the entire household on his own. He had a complete family with his wife and 2 children, and because of that, his wife was devastated and crying inconsolably. Due to Kamal Khan's death under suspicious circumstances, the police wanted to conduct a post-mortem and register a police complaint. But surprisingly, Kamal Khan's wife, Kajal, opposed the police's decision and said that she didn't want any dissection of her husband's dead body. However, under pressure from Kamal Khan's sisters, Kajal agreed to the post-mortem, and the report revealed that Kamal Khan died due to multiple organ failure caused by the consumption of arsenic and thallium. After this, a police complaint was registered regarding Kamal Khan's death, and the case was transferred to the Santa Cruz police station. The police there began taking the case seriously because the heavy metal chemicals found in Kamal Khan's body couldn't be obtained from any normal medical store, lab, or clinic. In fact, these chemical elements are completely banned for regular use in India and can only be bought or sold from one company to another. Even in such transactions, companies need government permission, special licenses, specific permits, and a written letter stating how much of the chemical is needed and for what purpose. This raised the question: how could someone get access to such deadly chemical elements, and how could they use them to commit murder? Because of this, the doctors and police requested Kamal Khan's family members to undergo heavy metal testing as well, as it was possible that someone was targeting the entire family. During this time, Kamal Khan's 3 sisters got their heavy metal tests done, but Kajal initially refused. However, after much persuasion, Kajal agreed to the test, and on September 23, 2022, her report revealed traces of thallium in her blood. But the amount was very low, and after receiving the antidote, Kajal fully recovered. However, Kamal Khan's 3 sisters also informed the police that their mother, Sarla Devi, had died in the previous month of August. Before her death, she had shown the same symptoms as their brother, Kamal Khan. Upon hearing this, the police began to suspect that Sarla Devi's death might also have been a murder. As new revelations kept emerging in the case, it kept getting more and more complicated. For this reason, the case was taken from the Santa Cruz police and handed over to Unit 9 of the Mumbai Crime Branch. The Crime Branch is a special unit under the police department or investigative agencies that focuses on investigating and preventing serious crimes. After this, the Crime Branch collected Kamal Khan's medical reports and all the statements given by his family so far, and then they began investigating the case in their own way. The Crime Branch team then spoke to Kamal Khan's company staff, friends, and a few close relatives. And during this time, Kamal Khan's 3 sisters revealed some surprising things to the police. According to his sisters, Kamal Khan had been unhappy with his wife for nearly 2 years. Tension had been growing in their marriage over the past 2 years. As per Kamal Khan's sisters, Kajal would frequently get angry at her husband and also didn't get along with her mother-in-law, Sarla Devi. In fact, in May 2021, Kajal got upset with her in-laws and took her daughter with her to her parental home. She stayed there for the next 4 to 5 months, and then in October 2021, she returned to Mumbai but didn't live with her husband. Instead, Kajal chose to rent a room in the suburb of Vilpara in Mumbai and stayed there. However, in that same month of October, Kajal went back to Kamal Khan's house, took all her expensive jewelry and some important belongings, and returned to her rented flat. Even after this decision by Kajal, both Kamal Khan's family and even Kajal's own family tried to persuade her, asking what had upset her so much and urging her to return to her husband's home and start living with him again. Kamal Khan himself wanted his wife to let go of past grievances and return so they could live happily as a family once again. After several months of efforts to convince her, Kajal finally agreed to return to her in-laws' home in May 2022, but she had a few conditions. Kajal's first condition was that she would maintain distance from Kamal Khan and sleep separately. Her second condition was that she would go wherever she wanted, talk to whoever she liked, and no family member would interfere in her decisions. Kajal's third condition was that she needed money to fulfill all these personal desires, and for that, she wanted 200,000 rupees per month from her husband. To give some perspective, while a normal factory employee or laborer in India earns only 15,000 to 20,000 rupees a month, how could a woman demand 200,000 rupees from her husband each month? For an estimate, 20,000 Indian rupees equal about $235, and 200,000 rupees equals approximately $2,340. Yet, despite all this, all of Kajal's conditions were accepted. And that's when she returned to her in-laws' house in June 2022. Now, Kajal was living freely at her in-laws' house. She only cooked for herself and her daughter and didn't concern herself with the rest of the family. During this time, Kajal also got into an argument with her mother-in-law, Sarla Devi, and by now, everyone felt the household environment might never improve. But according to Kamalkant Shah's three sisters, a few days later, Kajal's behavior toward everyone suddenly started to change. She began treating her husband with affection, started speaking respectfully to her mother-in-law, and even took it upon herself to cook and serve food for everyone. She even began giving very little work to the housemaid. Actually, in the Shah family, it was specifically the duty of one maid to regularly give Sarla Devi a glass of warm milk and water from time to time. But now Kajal had taken over even this task herself. However, this is where Kamalkant's three sisters began to suspect that their brother and mother's health started deteriorating only after Kajal had taken full control of the house and kitchen. After hearing all of this, the police's suspicion also deepened toward Kajal, and they decided to follow her background and daily routine. First, the police checked Kajal's call detail records, and they repeatedly saw one number that Kajal called multiple times a day. This number was saved under the name Hitesh Jain, and the same number was also found in Kamalkant's phone. After this, the crime branch team asked Kamalkant's sisters about Hitesh Jain and found out that he was their brother Kamal's childhood friend. They had gone to school and college together, and Hitesh was also in the garment business. Besides that, Hitesh considered Kamalkant a brother, which is why he occasionally visited their home. So, finding Hitesh Jain's number in both Kamalkant and Kajal's phones seemed normal, and one might think the police shouldn't have suspected him too much. But the shocking thing was that Kajal was chatting with Hitesh on WhatsApp and also speaking with him quite frequently over calls. Now the question was, why and what would a woman talk about so extensively with a normal family friend? To find answers to these questions on December 1st, 2022, the Mumbai Crime Branch arrested Kajal and began interrogating her. Although the police couldn't locate Hitesh at that time, they still used all their resources to track him down. Meanwhile, the police interrogated Kajal strictly, and eventually she broke under pressure and revealed a shocking story. Actually, when Kamalkant was only 10 years old, his father passed away, and at that time all three of his sisters were also very young. A few years after his father's death, Kamalkant began taking responsibility for his entire family. He supported the education of his three sisters and also worked while continuing his own studies. Later, Kamalkant started his own clothing business, which became quite successful due to his hard work. Then, in 2002, Kamalkant married Kajal, also known as Kavita, whose father was a well-known industrialist from Surat, a city in Gujarat, India. Later, the couple had 2 children, and at the time of Kamalkant's death, their daughter was 20 years old and their son was 17. Kajal also told the police that Hitesh often came to their house because he was a very close friend of her husband. But due to his frequent visits, Kajal also began casually talking and laughing, with Hitesh. Initially, Hitesh considered Kajal his sister-in-law, and they started joking around with each other, which led to a good friendship between them. As a result, when Kajal started having arguments with her husband in the early days, she began sharing her sorrows with Hitesh. Gradually, she began sharing all her joys and sorrows with him, and Hitesh became her emotional support. During this time, Hitesh started developing feelings for Kajal and fell in love with his friend's wife. The two would often chat and talk on the phone whenever they had the chance. But around 2020, Kamalkant discovered the affair between his wife and his friend when he caught them in a compromising situation one day. After this, the conflict between the husband and wife grew even more intense. However, following this revelation, Kamalkant didn't blow the matter out of proportion because he cared about his reputation. But Kajal constantly lived in fear that her husband might take some kind of action against her at any time. Although Kajal could have divorced Kamalkant at this point, and he would have agreed to it, she also knew that if she filed for divorce herself, she wouldn't receive a single penny in alimony. On top of that, Kamalkant now owned property worth crores and had insurance policies worth millions. He had even made himself, his mother, Sarla Devi, and his wife, Kajal stakeholders in his company. Kajal discussed all of this with her boyfriend Hitesh, and eventually the two of them decided that they would commit murder, not just one, but two. In fact, some of the properties that Kamalkant had acquired were in his mother, Sarla Devi's name. Additionally, Sarla Devi also had a large term insurance policy in her name. She even held a significant share in Kamalkant's company. That's why Kajal knew that if they killed Kamalkant, then her mother-in-law, Sarla Devi, would become an obstacle later. This is why Kajal and Hitesh also made a plan to kill Sarla Devi. Now they had to come up with a perfect plan to commit two murders in such a way that both deaths would appear natural. For this, Hitesh turned to the internet. Meanwhile, Kajal, angry with her husband, had gone to her parents' house. There, she openly continued to talk to Hitesh all day, since no one was around to stop her. During this time, Hitesh also found a way to carry out the murder through the internet and told Kajal that they would kill her husband and mother-in-law using arsenic and thallium, two deadly chemical elements. Hitesh explained that these two chemicals do not get easily detected in normal blood tests. Furthermore, consuming them does not cause instant death, so no one would suspect them. But since these substances are banned in India, Hitesh came up with a way to obtain them easily. Hitesh created a fake company and then contacted a legitimate company, telling them that they needed some chemical elements to make low-temperature thermometers. He also told the company that the elements were currently needed just for experimental purposes, and that they planned to do bigger business in the future. Hearing all this, the company didn't ask too many questions and initially sent a small quantity of thallium, arsenic, and a few other chemical elements to Hitesh by courier. Now, one part of their deadly plan was complete, and the only thing left was to get the chemicals to Kajal. For this reason, Kajal deliberately returned from her parents' home to Mumbai and started living in a rented flat. After that, Hitesh went to Kajal's rented flat and gave her the arsenic and thallium. From here on, Kajal had to handle everything on her own, so she moved back into her husband's house with her daughter. Once there, Kajal first took over some of the housemaid's responsibilities. Where earlier the maid used to provide Sarla Devi with milk, food, and water on time, Kajal now started doing all that herself. She also began serving food to her husband herself and slowly started mixing arsenic and thallium into both their meals. However, Kajal only wanted to kill the two of them, so she didn't mix the chemicals into the entire meal to ensure her child wouldn't consume it. Now, since Sarla Devi was quite old, had fallen ill several times and was physically weak, arsenic and thallium affected her more quickly, which is why she died first, followed later by her son Kamalkant. But after these two sudden deaths, when the police began their investigation and asked all the family members to undergo heavy metal tests, Kajal initially refused. However, 10 days later, she agreed to the test, and the reason behind this was that she herself wanted to consume a very small amount of thallium and arsenic so the police wouldn't suspect her even 1%. That's why, when Kajal got the chance, she consumed a small amount of thallium and arsenic and then went for her test. Now, after hearing this whole story, the police also began searching for Hitesh, and eventually they found him too. After this, the police retrieved his old search history from his cell phone and laptop. Here, the police found that in the past few days, he had searched for arsenic 105 times and thallium 156 times. In addition, from their WhatsApp chats, the police also discovered that Kajal was planning to give thallium and arsenic to her husband while he was in the hospital, but she failed to do so. Apart from this, the police also collected CCTV footage from the rented house where Kajal had stayed for some time with her daughter. In these CCTV footages, the police also found evidence that Hitesh used to come to meet Kajal. Now, the police had the motive for the murder, the method, and the suspect's confession statements. After this, by February 27, 2023, the police filed a 365-page charge sheet in court detailing the alleged crimes. The trial for this case then began in court, and during the proceedings, various pieces of evidence and witnesses were presented before the judge. However, in the middle of this, in May 2024, Kajal appealed for bail in the Sessions Court, but at that time the judge rejected her bail, considering the severity of the crimes committed by Kajal and Hitesh. But in September 2024, when Kajal once again appealed for bail, this time she was granted bail by the Sessions Court on September 18th, citing the lack of direct evidence and concerns for the well-being of her children. In reality, the police only had circumstantial evidence against Kajal. They had no direct evidence. That's why Kajal told the court that she was being framed. The police did not recover any slow poison from her, and they had no solid proof against her. During the bail hearing, the prosecution weakened, and as a result, Kajal Shah is currently roaming free on bail like any ordinary person. However, Hitesh Jain is still behind bars, and even the Bombay High Court has not granted him bail yet. Although the killers murdered 2 people in this case, only 1 murder is recorded in the police records because the police had no evidence to prove that Sarla Devi's death was a homicide. Since Sarla Devi's body was cremated without any suspicion, no heavy metal test could be performed. Because of this, it remains unknown whether her death was natural or part of a conspiracy. But this case is still ongoing in court, and the official sentencing of both killers is yet to happen. If there are any new updates in this case in the future, we will inform you about them through the David True Crime Channel's community posts and in the comments section of this video. So, with that, the Sarla Devi and Kamalkant Shah murder case comes to an end right here. If you appreciate our efforts, like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Thank you.